So welcome everyone. Good afternoon. It's nice to see so many friendly faces here, so many familiar faces. I'm glad you could join us for one of the annual highlights of the year here at UNE, which is our P.D. Merrill lecture series in business ethics. This is the 12th year that we've done this, and what it does is it allows us to create a space where we can talk about developments in business and business ethics in particular, and the role that these ethical considerations should play in our personal and professional life and our life choices. This challenges us to think about things, to think about deep choices that we make in our lives in a way that will strengthen our own lives and communities and those of others as well. The series namesake, P.D. Merrill, Paul D. Merrill, was that kind of person that everybody who knew him really found he was beloved, and he had a big impact in everyone that he met and touched. He was beloved here in Maine, where his family ran a business while supporting the community in just many countless ways. He was also beloved at UNE. He was a member of our board of trustees for many years, and he served as our board chair, as a matter of fact, contributed to the life of the university in countless ways. All the while, his acts of kindness and unfailing goodwill offered examples of others to others in our community to follow. And regrettably, I never knew him personally. I never had a chance to meet him, but I feel grateful to have made the acquaintance of his lovely wife, Sandy Golden, and their son, Ethan. Sandy and Ethan, I know I saw you somewhere. Could you please stand up and be, oh, there you are, sorry, Ethan. Please stand up and be recognized. Through this series, Sandy and Ethan have remained involved in the life of the university, and for that we're very, very grateful. Thank you both. Thank you for your commitment to UNE and for continuing to challenge us to embody the high ethical standards that PD embodied. In addition to Sandy, who is herself a former trustee of UNE, it's wonderful to see so many other current and former board members here, including the chairman of our board, David Anderson, and his wife, Lindy, right here in the front. Thank you very much for coming. And I'm delighted to see so many community members as well as members of the UNE faculty and professional staff with us as well. And I know we have students as well in the audience, and we also have students watching live stream back in Biddeford. You have noticed, I'm sure, as students, how much that we take seriously our commitment to preparing you for a life that's not only successful, but also meaningful. We have a new strategic plan, and as you know, that strategic plan strives to impart within you the skills and knowledge you will need to support not only your professional development, but your lifelong learning over the course of your career. We believe that it's our responsibility to do whatever we can to help you leave the world just a little bit better place than you found it. And that vision implies a particular sort of ethics. It implies that each of us should put our work and talents to use in a way not only to advance our own lives, but to help the world. By dedicating ourselves to a purpose that's larger than just ourselves, we enrich our lives, our communities, and the world at large. So whether you're majoring in business or marine entrepreneurship, global studies, sustainability, or business, or one of our pre-professional programs, I hope you realize that you have the ability to transform the world in meaningful ways. You have it in your power to live a life that's rich and meaningful, that is substantive, and that will have an impact long after you're gone. Our speaker today is someone who lives and really embodies just such a purpose-driven life. Dr. Donna Carolis, who is a close and dear friend, serves as the inaugural dean of the nation's first freestanding School of Entrepreneurship, the Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel University. We worked very closely together when I was at Drexel, and as I said, she is a dear friend and a remarkable human being. She also serves as the Silverman Family Professor of Entrepreneurial Leadership. At the Close School, Dr. Carolis has initiated a pioneering approach to entrepreneurship education, one that seeks to empower all students with the mindset that will allow them to become entrepreneurs. She's very well known in Philadelphia as a public speaker and a local media personality. She serves on a number of local boards, including the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Exchange. Her research has been widely published and cited in a number of academic journals. She is the recipient of the Charles R. and Mary F. Lindbach Foundation Award for Distinguished Teaching. She holds a doctoral degree in strategic management from Temple University and an MBA from Villanova University. And as I said, Donna and I go way back, and she's just a really wonderful person. I have to tell one little story. We were traveling together while I was at Drexel. We were traveling together on a trip to Asia, and we were in China and then in South Korea. And while in Seoul, we visited the Seoul National University. This is the most prestigious university in Korea. And so we were visiting there and visiting with the president or whatnot, and the president kept referring to her, and instead of the Dean of Entrepreneurship, he referred to her as the Dean of Entertainment. So I think he got the word entrepreneurship and entertainment mixed up. And she is indeed a very entertaining person, but since that time, I have referred to her as my friend, Donna de Carolis, the Dean of Entertainment from Drexel University. So she will be presenting today a talk entitled Ready, Set, Fail, Meet Your Inner Entrepreneur. So please join me in welcoming Drexel's Dean of Entertainment, Dr. Donna de Carolis. Donna, this.
I will never live it down, thank you. So if you're expecting a song and dance, no. Well, good afternoon and thank you. I'm really honored to be here as a speaker in this in the Paul D. Merrill lecture series in business ethics. I do want to thank the distinguished trustees who are here for attending, to the Merrill Foundation for the support for this series, and obviously to my dear friend and actually former boss at Drexel University, President Herbert. The major purpose of this series is to highlight best practices in business ethics. I can think of no better way to encourage ethical business than through entrepreneurship education. Entrepreneurship education done the right way is a critical component in producing the next generation of entrepreneurs who innovate and lead with a purpose that resonates with UNE's mission, Innovation for a Healthier Planet. So the title of my talk is Ready, Set, Fail, Meet Your Inner Entrepreneur. So let me introduce you to your inner entrepreneur right now. So I would like you to take a look at the Mona Lisa, Da Vinci's masterpiece. What I would like you to do is to channel your inner Da Vinci and create your masterpiece. So please take the pen and pencil and paper that's been provided to you. Are you ready? It should be there on the chairs. Okay, got it in hand? Channel. I'd like you to look to the person to your left and draw a portrait of that person. Okay? Wait. And then when you're finished, I would like you to share your masterpiece with that person. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Ready, set, go. You're channeling Da Vinci, right? He'd be proud of you. Okay, if you're finished your masterpiece, why don't you share it with the person? Show them what you've drawn. How about it? People are walking back there. It's good. Okay. So I hear lots of laughing. I hear lots of laughing. I hear lots of laughing. I hear apologies. I hear people saying, you really don't look like this. I can't do this. I'm not good at this. I can't do this. If we ask 4-year-olds to do the same thing, there's really no laughing, no criticism. They just earnestly grab their markers, their pens, their iPads, and get right to it. And they're earnestly drawing whatever we ask them to draw. And then when they're done, they will proudly show their masterpiece and ask you to put it on the refrigerator. So, what's happened to us? What's happened to that 4-year-old, to that inner entrepreneur in all of us? And here's what's happened. We're afraid to fail. We are afraid of an adverse outcome. But we're socialized and generally trained to view failure as a sign of embarrassment, a sign of weakness. We're conditioned by families, by friends, by our educational systems, by organizations, by our culture, that there are acceptable ways of behaving. There are rules and policies and procedures to follow, and to a degree, this is necessary. But along the way, our entrepreneurial spirit is just beat out of us. Da Vinci didn't create the Mona Lisa in one try. Einstein didn't wake up and spontaneously jot down the theory of relativity. LeBron James has probably missed just as many shots in his career, but he took them. Einstein said, anyone who hasn't failed hasn't tried something new. And think about how we handle failure. What do we do when we fail? Some of us retreat. We blame ourselves. I'll never do that again. I'll never try that again. We blame others. Not my fault. And unfortunately, as we see today with some very prominent entrepreneurs and business leaders, on the news lately, unfortunately, failure defined as a decrease in profits, in market share, or market value is avoided at all costs, and sometimes through less than ethical means. But failing is a part of life, and it happens to every one of us all the time. And despite what we think, it's not really failure that defines us. It's what we do with that failure that defines us. It's our resilience. And resilience is the hallmark of the entrepreneur. Because what do entrepreneurs do? They try, they fail, they retry, they fail, they retry, they fail again. The purpose of entrepreneurship and innovation is to make lives better, is to create social good, is to generate jobs, is to spawn future innovations. Entrepreneurship, as Schumpeter said, is the engine of progress in society. We need innovators and entrepreneurs to make things happen. And universities are the place to learn and to practice entrepreneurship. So the key takeaways of my conversation with you, why I'm here, is to talk to you generally about failure and being the entrepreneur of your life, and how higher education, how universities can and should educate students to be the entrepreneurs of their lives. The good news is, you just showed me that you have that inner entrepreneur. And although I pushed you, you pulled out your inner entrepreneur and tried something that made you uncomfortable. You moved out of your comfort zone. So in this one exercise, you reached out and you tried something new. And add to that, you took a risk because you had to show that masterpiece to the subject, to the person next to you. I pushed you out of your comfort zone. Now, granted, this was a relatively safe environment in which your inner entrepreneur emerged, so you probably felt a bit more courageous than you normally would under other circumstances. But it's not so bad to try something new in a safe place, and more about that later. The bottom line, all of us have this inner entrepreneur inside of us that emerges from time to time, but we don't label it as such because the word entrepreneur has come to mean this superhero. Notice I chose a female Captain Marvel. We think of the entrepreneur as someone who starts a company and is wildly successful. Oh, and because of this, they become the celebrity. They're the superhero. They're the other. They're not like us. It's something, we can never be. There's entrepreneurs and then there's us. It's all or it's nothing. Yet, in its purest form, the origin of the word entrepreneur comes from the French, and it means to swim out, to reach out, and to grasp. It's evolved to mean to undertake. Now think about this vision of what an entrepreneur is. Someone who swims out, who reaches out and grasps, who undertakes a new opportunity. An act of undertaking, that's pretty powerful. So when we embrace this very original meaning of the word entrepreneur, this act of reaching out and capturing and taking, it opens up a whole new way for us to look at who we are. It opens up an interpretation of those moments in our lives when we think and behave like an entrepreneur. And I call those moments our small acts of entrepreneurship. Small acts of entrepreneurship extend way beyond the realm of business and profession. They occur throughout our lives, although we don't label them as such. When we swim out, reach out, move away, and undertake something new, something that we don't normally do, something that we may be afraid of, we are engaging in these small acts of entrepreneurship. It could be moving to a different location. It could be changing careers. It could be evolving through a personal challenge or a crisis that we face. We're born entrepreneurs, and we don't realize the extent to which we manifest that character throughout our lives. Again, for many of us, the norms of society and culture and education, they tame or they limit these entrepreneurial traits. So when we face an opportunity, a crossroads, sometimes we decline. We learn the comfort and the safety of doing more of same. We begin to fear as opposed to consider undertaking new opportunities. But sometimes we just can't do more of same. Have you ever felt a moment in your life, think about it, when you thought, I just really can't do this anymore? So we end a relationship, we change jobs, we move, we take on a new hobby, we volunteer, we learn a new skill. The list goes on if you think about it. These are small acts of entrepreneurship that we do. And the more that we engage in these small acts of entrepreneurship and work through the uncertainty, the advantages and the disadvantages, we become more like our inner entrepreneur. The more we push ourselves to overcome or to renew or to change, we're touching that superhero that exists inside of us. But unfortunately, the term entrepreneur has been projected to this larger-than-life character in a business context, dismissing and dispelling the view that there's an entrepreneur inside all of us. We have the capacity to think and act innovatively, to embrace change, to overcome challenges, to look for options, to be resilient. And we do this in our lives in small and maybe imperceptible ways. The assumption that the entrepreneur is different than the rest of us, disregarding that inner entrepreneur and fixating on this idea that the entrepreneur is this larger-than-life personality, has been the foundation of entrepreneurship education in universities. And that is why I think that entrepreneurship is taught in the wrong building in universities, or maybe it's taught in the wrong way in that building. Entrepreneurship is typically taught in business schools. Because entrepreneurship education, and think about this, in higher ed, in the academy, has been built on 3 assumptions. 1, the entrepreneur is solely the one who starts a company. 2, entrepreneurship is all about the process of starting that company. And 3, measuring the success of entrepreneurship education at a university is tied to the number and scale of companies started by entrepreneurship graduates. Those are the 3 assumptions that underpin entrepreneurship education at universities. And because of this, it's minimized the development of an entrepreneurial mindset, which includes innovative thinking and ethical behavior, and we can teach both. Let's look at Captain Marvel again. There she is. Look at this, look at the picture of the superhero, and we can put any entrepreneur you can think of up there. When you think of the character or the traits of an entrepreneur, what do you think of? You probably think they're resourceful, they're determined, they have integrity, they're creative, they're passionate, they take calculated risks, they're visionaries, they build teams. Is this what you think of when you think of an entrepreneur? Probably. You think of their character, their mindset, right? Does anyone, and you can put any entrepreneur picture up there, does anyone ever think, when they think of an entrepreneur and what that person is, do we ever think an entrepreneur is someone who can code like there's no tomorrow? An entrepreneur is an expert in inventory management. An entrepreneur can easily calculate net present value and manage financial statements. I don't think so. Are these things important? Absolutely, yes. Are they necessary to running business? Absolutely, yes. They're necessary, but they're not sufficient. Because when you think of an entrepreneur, you're thinking of the mindset of that person. Restricting the definition of an entrepreneur as one who starts a company has defined where and how we have taught entrepreneurship education at the university, and it centers all on that process of entrepreneurship, the goal of which is company formation. So entrepreneurship education then has turned into a business discipline, and that's not all bad. But think of the optics of housing entrepreneurship in a business school. What's the message? For business students only. As universities began incorporating entrepreneurship in their programming, and it accelerated through 1970s and the 1980s, there's a somewhat standardized curriculum that emerged, echoing a business school curriculum. So anybody here familiar with business school curriculums? How we teach? Yes, thank you, James, I'm glad you are. Business schools, and I was 20 years at a business school at Drexel, maybe a little less, are siloed into functional areas, right? There's accounting, there's marketing, there's finance, there's law, there's operations management. Students typically major in one of those, and then they are required to take a capstone strategy course, strategic management, which integrates all these functional areas to prepare them to be managers and understand how the whole enterprise works. The pedagogy is very valid, very effective, has produced wonderful, wonderful business students. It's a great way to teach business. And entrepreneurship programs, as they grew up in the university, have mirrored that paradigm. We have entrepreneurial marketing, entrepreneurial law, entrepreneurial finance, and then students sometimes take a capstone business planning class, and then we graduate them and send them out the door, and we expect them to be entrepreneurs and start a company. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because these plans of study, this pedagogy that has dominated business schools, has focused on the process of entrepreneurship, how you do it, and it hasn't focused on educating the person. And to really create entrepreneurs, people who reach out and undertake and are resilient, students need to practice both thinking and behaving like an entrepreneur. It needs to be experiential. When we think of our inner entrepreneur, we think about attitude and mindset. When we think about the entrepreneur who starts companies, we think about their character, their attitude, their mindset. Entrepreneurship education in higher ed and even in high schools, and it's pushing down more into high schools, I see it all the time, must be built on the acknowledgement that everyone at the university is entrepreneurial, not just business students. and that our curriculum is just as much about building the person, the entrepreneur, as it is about building the company. And in building that person, we create ethical character and social responsibility. Students need to practice. They need to practice the mindset in tandem with the process. So by expanding the definition of entrepreneurship away from someone who starts a company to a mindset, an innovative approach to thinking and doing in life, in career, and profession, an attitude, a habit of mind that's about resilience, professional autonomy, initiative, calculated daring, ethical behavior. This expands our entrepreneurship curriculum. So I'm the dean of the Charles D. Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel University. It is the first independent, outside the business school, degree-granting school of entrepreneurship in the nation. We were founded on the principle that we will teach to the person as well as the process, that entrepreneurship is a mindset, it's not a business model. We're founded on the reality that young people, especially today, need to be the entrepreneurs of their life. It's founded on the principle that the university should be a safe place to fail, because we're going to help you get back up and try again. So at the school, we created 35 brand new courses in 6 months, I might add. We worked like crazy. That comprised 2 degrees, a BA and an MS, and we incorporate courses that go right to the person. We have a course that's called Ready, Set, Fail. We have a course in life strategies, in how to be a leader, in how to build teams. We have a course in mindfulness and well-being. How do you stay present when the world around you is going crazy? A course in how to ideate, a course we call Launch It. And we have promised that in every one of our courses, we will focus on building that person. Our students of course, we teach the process of entrepreneurship. They take courses in accounting, in marketing, in franchising, in family business, in financing. And then at the school, we make sure that all of our students minor in an area of their passion, in an area that they really want to excel in. So they graduate somewhat with T skills, learning the landscape of entrepreneurship and also a discipline area. We crafted our curriculum so that it's experiential, so that all students, regardless of major across the university, can enjoy our courses and our extracurricular programming. We're centered on students starting something over and over again, because it's a safe place to fail. We push them to create their masterpiece, something they never thought they could do, by going through multiple steps and iterations. Through the process of starting something, if you've ever started anything, you learn how to gather resources, how to communicate, how to negotiate, how to persuade, how to build a team. We're building their character. We teach them perspective about failure, how to sometimes have a sense of humor, not take things so seriously, how to bounce back. It's a curricula and it's a programming that involves a whole new or revised approach. It's a lot of work. You need professors and instructors who will pay just as much attention to that student's mindset and ethics as they are to their financial statements and market analysis. It's a set of experiential courses that develop initiative, ethical behavior, communication, resilience. We teach our students how to fail. We push them to fail, not their courses, to fail in their startups. What do you do next? How do you learn from that failure? We talk to them about the autopsy of a failure. Let's look at this objectively. Cry for a minute. Now let's look at this objectively. What went wrong? What have you learned? What are your next steps? The approach to entrepreneurship education really goes beyond coursework. Any holistic approach to entrepreneurship education, in my view, involves these 5 elements, this combination of elements, this ecosystem, each piece reinforcing the other. You can't just have courses. It's got to be more than that. It has to be purpose-driven. It has to be part of the university's mission and culture. Designing an entrepreneurship experience for students requires a faculty, an administration, a leadership passionate about educating the person, clear about outcomes, a commitment to an entrepreneurial mindset. It involves a curriculum that's curated, including experiential courses, activities, simulations, interviews, customer focus, field trips, experiments, real problems facing real people in the business and the environment. I'm digressing for a minute. I met a student today that was part of the Innovation Challenge who had a technology for a pharmacist to use. I won't go into the details. And I was very curious, and I said to him, Joshua was his name, and I said, where did you get this idea? Where did he get the idea? He worked in a pharmacy for 5 years. Something we called entrepreneurial alertness. This young man saw this problem, saw the problem in the pharmacy, and thought, how do I make this better? We have to teach our students to be problem seekers in addition to problem solvers. And that's why exposing students to companies, to corporations, to nonprofits, to government, where they can seek problems and work on solutions is a beautiful thing. It's got to be a whole piece of this package. The approach also requires experts, mentors, faculty with both academic and practical experience, with connections to the community, connections to all types of companies and organizations to help our students. It involves throwing them in the pool, having them have multiple starts and pivots for our students, starting over and over again. Ideally, it involves a physical space. We have the maker space here. It involves a physical space to be around like-minded individuals to launch their ideas. We have experienced at the closed school the mindset and the challenging ethical situations the students do face as they start companies. This is a good thing. If you imagine the young lady, our Captain Marvel in the middle of this picture, imagine her starting a company at Drexel or here at University of New England. At Drexel, all of our students are required to sign a code of conduct. They're required to sign a lease if they're in our incubator, specifying conditions. These are things that people do in real life. She may run into, as her company grows and she's growing her company, it gets bigger, founder-partner relationship issues, confidentiality challenges. She'll learn about harassment, diversity, compliance problems, team conflict, struggles with financial statements and with accounting. She's going to have to develop professional behavior as she networks with people that we introduce her to in the Philadelphia community and that she meets herself when we send them on conferences or different places or different meetups. All these issues and so many more materialize when students start a company. They become mini CEOs. And as they experience these issues, it's our job at the university to guide them, both personally and through their coursework and extracurriculum programming. And if we think about defining success at the university level, think about this. In virtually every other academic discipline, from English to nursing to psychology to engineering, students can graduate and potentially get a job in a multitude of different types of positions in different industries, and we consider that a success. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, we insist the only measure of success for an entrepreneurship student is if they start a company. Clearly, starting companies are important, scaling, raising money, and universities should keep track of these things for lots of reasons, and it's challenging, but I think that universities, in line with their mission and values, have to think about other outcomes of an entrepreneurship education. There's a framework that I came across. That's a quick picture of our incubator, a little PR here. There's a framework that I came across that focuses on student transformation in entrepreneurship education. And it says, we should really be looking at 3 types of outcomes. And it blends so well with this idea of entrepreneurship as a mindset. Are we teaching our students in their head, their heart, and their hands, their knowledge, their skill, and their attitude, in line with the university's mission and values? We can measure mindset. There's a scale for that, and we do that at the closed school. We can measure self-efficacy. We can look at and assess how well they work in teams. We can assess them on persuasion, communication, negotiation, creativity skills, bootstrapping skills, student satisfaction surveys. How about their community impact? What is the impact they're having on community? Why don't we think of that as we graduate our entrepreneurship students? As an academy, we can define success in terms of our mission and values if our mission or purpose is to ignite an entrepreneurial mindset. It's not just starting a company. So you might be saying, why do we have to upset the way that entrepreneurship is taught? What's wrong with just teaching it as a process? Here's what's wrong. The 21st century labor market is radically different than what we've ever experienced. Between the ages of 22 and 42, it's documented by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that people today and will continue to have at least 10 jobs. Think of that, 10 jobs in different industries in multiple positions. Several of those jobs will be self-employment. Companies themselves, and you may have experienced this, are downsizing and they're outsourcing. They're using more independent contractors, more alternative work arrangements for cost efficiencies, but also to use specialized skills when they need them. This creates a market for entrepreneurs. Companies want to hire individuals who are innovative. A McKinsey survey of Fortune 500 companies, 80% of the CEOs said innovation is the highest thing on their scale when they're looking to hire people. It's a gig economy. It's predicted by next year, 40% of our workforce will be contingent labor. Individuals now and increasingly more will have multiple jobs at the same time. They'll work for a company while running their own company, and with technology and infrastructure today, it's pretty easy to do. Gen Zs and millennials, they don't want a career where they're working for a company for 20 years generally. They want flexibility, they want mobility. They want to work in a new venture or at some point in their careers, start a company. I am so impressed by the innovative spirit here at University of New England. The commitment and the passion for sustainability, the research in marine science and technology that's producing such wonderful, wonderful innovations. Imagine marrying that with an entrepreneurial mindset, the impact that your students can have on doing good in the world. This is a generation that wants to have an impact, and we should capitalize on that. They want to solve social problems. They want to choose companies that align with their values. Entrepreneurial skills and a mindset are essential for graduates who are going to be working in an established organization, who'll be working for a new venture, for graduates who want to start their own company, for graduates who'll be doing both at the same time or transitioning among those. More importantly, an entrepreneurial mindset is essential in our own lives as we experience our own personal failures and learn how to be resilient. Let me share with you a story. I'm from Philadelphia, so you know this had to come up. You should expect this. Anybody here ever have the experience of waking up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep? Anybody have? Okay. So happens to me all the time. And if you're type A, like I am, you think, okay, I'm wide awake. I must be productive, so I'll answer email, I'll work on a spreadsheet, maybe I'll learn a new language in the next hour, I don't know. But if you're like me, sometimes what we turn on the television and hope that maybe we'll just sort of get lulled back to sleep. So one night several years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, which I still do anyway, and I turned on the TV, and Sylvester Stallone was being interviewed. And the reporter was interviewing Sylvester, and he said, tell the story of how the first Rocky movie was made. You've probably heard this story. So Sylvester, this was his idea. So it was his script, his story. And so he went from studio to studio, producer to producer, knocking on the door, told, you know what, no, go away, no. Until he knocked on the one door, and the rest is history. And so the reporter looked at Sylvester and said, do you think that was luck? And I will never forget his answer. And so washed my hands. He used his hands and he said, well, it may have been luck, but I certainly pushed that way. So the way that I see education, it is and it always has been about pushing. Pushing minds to think in different ways. Pushing people to become something they never thought that they could. Pushing people to create, to identify, to cultivate their ideas. Now I'm going to try something new. I've never done this. I'm going to ask you to take your masterpiece that you have, that you wrote, that you did, and I'm going to dare you. I'm going to dare you to write down something that you're going to push yourself to do. You don't have to share this. That you're going to push yourself to, well, maybe you might, as I'm thinking about it. See, in the next 6 months, so today is April 4th, so by October 4th, if my math is right, write down something that you always wanted to do but haven't done. What are you going to start? Have you thought about starting a business? What is it that you've always wanted to do? What is it? Think about that for a few minutes. Dare yourself to start something. And then just go one step further. How will you define your success at that? Is it all or nothing? How will you define your success? While you're thinking, I'll share with you a dare that I did. Here we go. So a few years ago, I took up ballroom dancing, entertainment. And then last year, I actually broke my foot. I'm a runner, like President Herbert. And I got away from it. And I thought to myself, you know what, I don't know why I'm doing that. You know, I'm not, well, I think I was pretty good at it, but I thought, well, you know, I'm not really that good at it, and I'm not like the instructors, and I'm not going to do that again. I'll never be like, you know, the people on Dancing with the Stars. And I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I not going back to something that I like? Because I'm not going to be like Beyonce? I mean, because I'm not going to be the best dancer in the world? And sometimes we have this all or nothing attitude when we start something. If we're not the best, then we're not going to do it. So I'm daring you. I'm daring you to write down something that you'll do by October 4th. You can email me and let me know if you've done it. Okay. Anybody want to share their dare? Make it public? Anybody? Yes, go ahead. And your name is?
I'm Fran.
Hi, Fran.
And I wanted to start a podcast. I just haven't done it, so I'm going to do it.
Good for you. There you go. Let me know. Send me the link. Good, good. Anybody else want to share their dare? Come on, I shared my ballroom dancing story. No? President Herbert, would you like to share your dare? Okay, all right. Throughout their college careers, all students, not just business students, should have the experience of bringing an idea to realization, of learning how to launch and all that goes with it, particularly the endurance, brushing yourself off after a failed attempt and starting over. Our graduates, most likely, at some point in their careers, will start a new venture, will be working for one, find themselves in the position of a solo contractor, or be faced with the fact that getting ahead in a company requires truly innovative thinking and doing, an entrepreneurial mindset. Starting something is a lot more about who does it than it is about how to do it. Because if you've ever started anything, you know there is no mathematical formula, there's no pro forma, there's no regression, that if you were to mix them all up and incubate them for just the right amount of time, you'll have created a company. There's no right amount of ingredients or data that's going to get it right. This is the distinction we have to understand and communicate in higher education, the distinction between the entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. And think about this. If we look at the students and faculty here at the University of New England, I'm just wowed, that have the potential to make an impact. As we look at these people who are starting innovations, who can start something, they're not only business people. They're engineers, they're designers, they're chemists, they're biologists, they're artists, they're nurses, they're writers, and they're more. They're entrepreneurs. And what do entrepreneurs do? They excite, they inspire, they create excellent teams, they create conflict, they resolve conflict, they fail, they retry, they fail, they retry again. They take something that in many cases is considered worthless and impossible, and everyone tells them they're crazy. people told me I was crazy when I started the School of Entrepreneurship. Their ideas will never work. You can't do it. Nobody wants it. And then voila, they turn that idea into something valuable. An innovation that will in some cases make our lives better, create social good, generate jobs, and spawn future innovations. Doing this is just as much about mindset as it is about technical or business skills. Several research studies have attested to the fact that self-confidence is increased through experiential, and the key is experiential entrepreneurship education. Imagine if we give all young people the opportunity to pursue their passion, to dive in and start something with the support of professors, of mentors, of friends, of a network, of a university ecosystem. This is the role of higher education in the pedagogy of entrepreneurship. Let me conclude. As an educator, I want to push my students to the place where luck is nice to have, but you really don't need it, because you have the self-confidence, the passion, the knowledge, the imagination, the support, and the entrepreneurial mindset to be your definition of success. And what's important is your definition of success. Thank you. I'd be happy to take questions or comments if we have any questions or comments, and I think Mike has a microphone, and Tammy has a microphone. That's my little dog Louie up there. Isn't he cute?
I guess I have the mic, so I get to go.
And your name is? I'm sorry.
My name is Anna.
Hi, Anna.
And I've worked in social enterprises for most of my career.
Okay.
And what I've seen missing, especially among young people, is the ability to collaborate, to be a team player, to bridge divides. I find a lot of people come wanting to follow their own ideas, be an innovator. And I wonder how you connect the skills of collaboration and partnership with the idea of being an entrepreneur. You know, can collaborations be entrepreneurial?
So that's a great question. So, first of all, the myth of the solo entrepreneur is totally a myth. Nothing is ever done on your own, and we actually see this in our incubator with our students, and maybe you see it here. In order to really create something, you need a team. So I think that person, the people that you're seeing that are not collaborating, I'm not sure how they're going to succeed in life. And that's the point of having them start something in university. If we can design programs where they're starting something and they need to build teams, you combine that with courses and teamwork, right? You combine that with making them do something. It's part of their code of conduct in our incubator, to share their ideas. You have to create that environment. We have had a couple of students, actually I can think of, that could not get along in the incubator, and it just didn't work out. And see, this is where the learning comes in, right? This is where the learning comes in. So that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, and your name is?
Tim Honey.
Hi.
I come out of the public sector background, and I'm always interested in what schools of public administration are doing. And we know that they can attract young people that have a tremendous passion about going to work in the public sector and making our world a better place. But I don't think we do a very good job in those schools of making them entrepreneurs within the public sector. And I was wondering what experience you had at Drexel in terms of working with schools or programs of public administration.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Philadelphia has a great entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the city government in Philadelphia even has a whole department that's dedicated to entrepreneurial initiatives. So we actually engage our students with the city of Philadelphia. In addition, and President Herbert knows this, we're very involved with the community. that surrounds the university. And so within that community, there are many public and not-for-profit organizations that we connect students to. And that's a really good question. As I mentioned, government, it's really important that students be immersed in things outside the university and the ecosystem where they can see these problems and where they're exposed. You know, to your point, we don't think of entrepreneurship and government as kind of going together, but they have to go together. And so the more that we can connect them to these places that are outside the university and talk about public policy and the role that they can play, the better that it is. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Donna, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate that. We met earlier. I'm Bob McCarthy, Dean of the College of Pharmacy here.
Yes.
And the entrepreneurial spirit that existed in past generations of pharmacy students still exists today.
Yes.
The opportunities to open your own pharmacy are not as great as they once were. And so what advice would you give me to give them about these individuals, these men and women who really are very entrepreneurial and are looking for sort of, how do I be the entrepreneur in the 21st century coming from a pharmacy background?
Wow. I'm not familiar with the pharmacy industry. Pharmaceuticals, yes. Not because I take pharmaceuticals. But it's my understanding that the solo pharmacist is kind of, it's the Walgreens, it's the CVS's, right. So, you know, it's their passion. They need to follow that. You know what? There might be still a role for the individual pharmacist. Well, I have one in my neighborhood who his pharmacy was overtaken by a CVS, and he went and started his own. I don't know I'm not sure what's going on in that industry. I just have to say, if they really want to be an entrepreneur, they can find a place in a company to be innovative. They can find all sorts of opportunities, and I think that's the value of having our students go out into networking and meetups and things like this, because I tell my students, and when they've experienced it, you never know who you're going to meet or where the opportunity is. So they can take that set of skills.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Angela,
Hi, Angela.
and I'm actually a pharmacist, and
Okay.
I used to own my own pharmacy.
Right. Oh, there you go. Okay. So maybe you can answer the question.
Well, I'd like to add a little to that. The first thing I'd like to say, though, is that although I graduated from pharmacy many years ago, I really, but I feel like I'm an a serial entrepreneur because I've had multiple businesses over my life. And I think it's really great to have the thinking of teaching, because it is so different to teach entrepreneurship at the higher, at universities, not just in pharmacy, but any program. Like I was thinking, the dental program here or the occupational therapy program, these are all people who may want to go out and practice. And I know, like for pharmacy, for instance, it is getting harder and harder to own your own store. The market has changed. There's a lot of the world is just different today than it was when I had mine.
Sure.
But there's a lot of innovative programs that I've seen that pharmacists have done, such as starting their own consulting business, doing medication therapy management, starting their own, because now we can do biogenomics, or these different things. So I've seen a lot, and I see a lot on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I'm on there quite a bit about different pharmacists who have their own health coaching, or they've gone the way of integrative health. So it's just really would be interesting to have, not just for pharmacists, but even all these other different professions where it's not always you just work in a pharmacy. That there's a lot of different things out there. And as far as like the meetup groups, I actually have a meetup group also, and it's just a great way to connect with other entrepreneurs and, as you said, to really take the ideas of your passion to really, but I just think that it's great that UNE is really looking at this. So
Yeah, thank you. And actually, to your point, I talked about the 21st century labor market. Every industry, jobs are changing. I mean, if you look in the medical profession, if you even look in software development, if you look at financial analysts, the big banks are laying off financial analysts because they're using artificial intelligence. People are going to have to know how to recreate their skills. How do they pivot? The words that we use, because nothing is staying the same. Hi.
Hi, my name's Susan Morris. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Something tells me that you could equally have chosen to use your talents as a successful entrepreneur yourself, and so we thank you for choosing to instead guide others. You also evidently, obviously, are a wonderful role model for women in business. I wonder if you could comment on where women entrepreneurs are. Statistics show that women remain overprepared, underconfident,
Sure.
gender bias when they're pitching, and less access to capital.
Yep.
I'm wondering what you're seeing for women that you are leading, and also what your path is in your curriculum for perhaps assisting women. Thank you.
Right. So, yeah, I could talk forever on that one, so I'll come back. So the last comment you made, less access to capital, absolutely true. Statistics, the VCs, it's, you know, a woman walks in, it's just not, we can go there. So here's what I feel. I think we have to keep trying. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity with this generation. I think this generation of women is stronger. I think they have great role models. I think we're paving a way for them. I think we have to teach them that we as women have to have each other's backs. I think that has to be taught early on. And I think that because of this awareness of the power, I'll use that word, but of the equality of women, that young men are educated along the same way. And so I think that this is all very good for women. You know, I watch, you know, I have 3 children, they're in their 20s, and I see college students, and maybe you see it too. There's a different vibe among them, there's a different sort of equality I see, and I think that's good. So I think moving ahead, we're in a lot better place because of what we're teaching them now and what they're learning and how they feel empowered than even 10 years ago. I just ran a program called the Empowerment Program for Women Leaders on Campus for undergraduate students. It was very well attended, and we're going to do it again next year. Programming like that really helps. You know, how do you handle harassment, pay equity? How do you present yourself? All of these things that maybe we're not teaching in the classroom that we can teach. So any kind of extracurricular programming, the more extracurricular programming we can do at universities, I feel the better off we are in preparing students to be the entrepreneurs of their life. Yes.
I'm Dave, and I have a confession.
Uh-oh.
I'm a venture capitalist.
I know.
So I see a lot of early stage startups
Yeah.
coming out of universities. And for the first few years, they do pretty well. Where I think there's a big gap, and I'm wondering if Close has looked at this opportunity, is whether or not how you get people to the next level. Right, it's really, that's the tricky thing I see. Your failure rates are astronomical, and
Sure.
as a VC, I don't have time to go in and save these companies. But there's a gap
Sure.
there
Absolutely.
that needs to be filled, and I'm curious if that's come up in the way you've looked at your program.
So I'm going to give you 2 responses. So as an educator, and I talked about outcomes, to me, if I can graduate them with this mindset, then we've succeeded. So, you know, we're not really out to graduate the next, this is a bad example nowadays, Mark Zuckerberg, you know, for many reasons. Right, I guess that's right, he didn't graduate, I have to think of somebody else. So that's one thing. So that's why I say be clear about outcomes. You know, what do we want to produce as a university? We want to produce the starter who knows how to pivot in life. The reality, if for somebody who's starting a company, early stage capital is just so hard to come by. And Philadelphia is not the best place for it at all. So what we're trying to do at Drexel is to for those who are really intent on starting a company, and we think that because we vet them, right? And we help them pivot, and we say, have you talked to customers? Have you de-risked this? So if we get companies that we really think, and we have a few of them, they need capital. They need that first infusion. So we're actually looking at ways to get alumni involved, either philanthropically, to push those companies, to push those students. At Drexel also, we have, faculty with patented technologies, right? And so how do this closed school runs something called the Academic Innovators Boot Camp, which is teaching researchers how to be entrepreneurs, how to run their company, to get that mindset. So I think there are things that we can do. Capital is the big thing. You've got to get them to be, and if at universities we can, we can, and I just came back from San Francisco. I'm not familiar with the X Fund, but there are some funds out there that look specifically to student startups. So any way that we can connect them, but it's a great. But there really aren't that many of them that reach that stage at the university level, but some do. So thank you for the comment.
Hi, my name is Karen Houseknecht.
Hi.
I lead research efforts here at UNE, and so I was really excited to hear you use the word research.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm really impressed at your entrepreneurial success in starting a new school of entrepreneurship outside of a business school. How did you do that? And tell me about the team you put together of faculty to do this amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you. And James was with me during this. I was in the business school at Drexel. I was management department head. I was associate dean. But I always had I was always like a butterfly. I was always out talking to engineers and everybody else and students. And I found it very frustrating. I was telling the students or somebody this. I always found it very frustrating that there were so many students on campus that were entrepreneurial, that were not in the business school. And the path to learning about entrepreneurship in business school is a difficult path because, engineers have curricula they have to follow, and artists have curriculum, and, you have to take a course in the business school. If you want to take entrepreneurial finance, there are 3 prereqs. My God, you have to take statistics and calculus, and it was very frustrating to me. So my whole discussion about the way that it was taught sort of frustrated me. Not that it's the wrong way. To me, it was not given the current labor market, right? So, I had this idea for a school, outside the business school that stood on its own, that said, you don't have to be a business person to be entrepreneurial. That's basically what I was thinking. And I had my little white paper, and so I actually. And again, what we did at Drexel is not for every university. I mean, you could have an amazing entrepreneurship program within a liberal arts college. You can have one within a business school. It's just the way that it's taught. It has to be experiential. Students have to practice. And so I didn't see that going to happen. And so I had this idea where I could do this. And so I had shared it with leadership, and we got the funding, and the school was founded January 2013, January 30th, and I woke up on the 31st, and I was the closed school of entrepreneurship. It was me. But thank goodness I had a great administration, great leadership to help me to build the school. As I woke up and I thought, oh my God, I need a curriculum, I need a website, I need teachers, I need an assistant, so I'm glad you asked me about the team, because I think maybe our VC here will agree with me. It is all about the team. You have to get the right people on that team. You have to get the right people on that team. And this is my observation. I think that if you're starting something new, family and friends probably are not the best people on the team. I'm just saying. 1, and 2, I think you need to reach out to people that are different than you, and that you can't do this and they can do this, and you have to build your team, and you have to find people with the same passion that you have. And James knows the team that I built, and they are remarkable. It is all about the team, I think. Yeah, I don't know if that sort of answered your question.
Hi, thank you. My name is Marcia, if the mic's still on.
Hi.
I very much enjoyed your expanded definition of entrepreneurial. It would seem to me the logical extension of that definition is you don't really have to start a company. And there's a kind of a tension in your remarks as to whether one exhibits entrepreneurial behaviors in all kinds of settings, or that the successful student from the closed school really will start a company. Can you just say a little bit about what they do, and
Yeah.
now that you have graduates, what's that pattern?
Sure. If I understand the question correctly, so, and maybe I didn't make this clear. So starting a company is fine. It's not our goal for every student, and every student comes to the closed school with a different idea, different career path. So we have 3 concentrations. One is in new venture creation for the student that definitely thinks they want to start a company. One is corporate entrepreneurship. How are you innovative within an establishment? And one is social entrepreneurship, extremely popular concentration, right? So we have those 3 concentrations. We also have a minor for students that are not closed school students. And so I actually don't see a tension. So if they want to start a company, fine. If they don't, fine. Our goal is the mindset. How do we measure that mindset? That's what I think as educators we should be doing. And it's interesting because so Drexel's a 5-year program. I'll explain. So, we're just starting to graduate, our students now, right? So I have a small set of alumni, but that's a blessing because it's easy for us now to keep track. I can keep track because I have a small set, and I can have my data set and keep them close to me, no pun intended. And so what I'm finding is as they graduate, what they do one of 3 things. Some of them go right out and continue the company they started at Drexel, or they're starting another company. Some of them are working there are so many big companies that have innovation centers, corporate entrepreneurship, and so that's where they are. We have a 3rd category of people who are working in a company and developing their own app. They're doing the same thing. And then we have, somebody asked me about government. We have a couple that are going right into government, going right into public policy. It's really a mix, and I think we've trained them well, that they can pivot and they know how an organization works, and they've had that experience. So I don't know if that answers your question. Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you give us any tips for someone who might be interviewing job applicants to try to filter out whether or not the applicant sitting in front of us has an entrepreneurial mindset?
Yes, that's a really good question. I think you need to ask them what have they done, what initiatives have they started, or how would they start an initiative within your company? What are the things that they would do? One of the good things, one of the positive things about students that come out of an entrepreneurship program that's been experiential is that's what differentiates them. They've started something or they've been involved in something. So I think anything that shows experience in that way, and it can be, starting a club. It could be anything where they show initiative and they've done something, I think is critical. I think the other thing is to ask them about all of their interests that they have. If they're not just sort of focused on one thing as another. But I definitely think if you probe about things that they've started, things that they're involved in, things that they've led, lessons that they've learned, the typical question is, tell me about your failure. Ask them what they did after that failure. How did you handle that failure, right? And that might be a clue.
So, Donna,
yes.
This is really great. Thank you so much for coming. The question I have, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and it's dangerous for me to ask you this, especially right in front of my board chair here, but you've been at UNE now for about 24 hours, and you've seen a little bit of both campuses, and you got to tour the makerspace and whatnot. Can you share, and please be honest.
Sure.
I have thick skin, you won't hurt my feelings.
Okay.
Share, what are your impressions? What are your impressions of what you've seen? What do you find that looked good or impressive, but also what advice do you have for us in terms of our next step as we continue to try to build out our entrepreneurship program?
In terms of entrepreneurship education?
Well, in general, but
Yeah.
but I mean, I know you think the campus is pretty, the water, all that. You told me that already. But I mean, but more specifically, in terms of entrepreneurship education writ large at UNE, what are your impressions? What advice do you have for me?
I think I might have said it to someone already. I think you have all the ingredients here. I'm just absolutely amazed to build on what you've already created. That slide that I showed of what you need at a university, my feeling, those components that focus on that person, I think you've got it here. You know, it's very interesting, I'll be honest, and I think I said this to someone, that you have your business department within the liberal arts school. That's a huge advantage, because the doors are open. So I think that's clear. I think from what I could see, you have faculty that are very interested in the student. That doesn't always exist at a university, and I think because you're smaller, that kind of happens. The other thing that you have, which is just amazing, when I met the students that did the innovation challenge today, and you were talking about some of them last night, you have the ideas, you have the innovations, you have the science, you have the technology. My goodness, you have this whole health sciences campus. I can't imagine the things that are coming out here. And so, you know, the purpose of a university, there's three purposes, right? It's teaching, it's research, and it's outreach. It's bringing that great stuff that we're doing here out. You have that all here. It's probably just a tightening of how do we make these pieces connect? How do we have more of our students think about, well, I have this great idea that can help the oysters or the, you know, whatever it is, and how do we commercialize that? I think instilling that mindset, you know, and faculty and mentors. You need the mentors, you need connections to network, to community, incubator. I would say incubator. You've got the makerspace, but where do they, you know, we find so much, and you've been to my incubator, the Biata incubator, when students are around other like-minded individuals, it's infectious, it's contagious. And actually what we've done at our incubator is it's not just for companies, for student companies. We have a whole row of seats that we call our flex space. So this is for the random English student, history student, psychology student that kind of has an idea but not a company. So we make them sign a lease, you know, it's part of the experience, and they get to sit for 3 months in the incubator. They may end up working as interning for a student company. They share their ideas. They just get to be in that environment. And I think just having students to be able to do that. So I think a physical space and incubator in addition to the makerspace would be good. And, you know, just kind of focusing more on the curriculum and what the kinds of things that we teach. Yeah. Anything else? Have I entertained you? This is my job. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.